Hello students, in previous sessions we have completed cognitive processes like our memory, thinking. Today we are going to see. So the another cognitive process that is your thinking. So today the thinking, so you can see in this image, thinking as word says thinking, that means we are going to initiate the process of thinking. So that is a very important cognitive process of the human being's life. So that is your thinking. So you can see in this image, this girl is thinking. So what actually the thinking is? Thinking is a symbols, we can say. So whatever we are thinking inside our mind, so that is the symbols. So we can say the character of a thinking is a symbol. So all the symbols or all the images will be there in our mind. So that is called as your thinking. In other words, if we say, then whenever the thinking is the process which is going to be initiated by the problems, that means the problems in our life is going to initiate the thinking. For an example, if we have the simple question in our mind, then that how to write the paper in examination. So that question is going to initiate, that problem itself is going to initiate some thinking process in your mind. So whenever the problems are there, so these problems are going to initiate some thinking process. So that is called as the thinking process. So which is, as we have said, that as you have informed, that thinking is another cognitive process. So that is your thinking. So whenever we need to answer some problems at that time, as a result, the thinking process is going to take place. Let's see the definition of this thinking. So here we have the two definition of thinking given by two different psychologists. The first definition, which is given by Garrett in 1968. So according to Garrett, thinking is behavior which is often implicit and hidden. So ultimately, as we have seen, what is behavior? Behavior, that means how we behave in certain situation, in response to any stimuli, what reactions we are giving. So that is your behavior. So thinking is ultimately a behavior, but it is a one type of behavior which we are not going to explicit it, which we are not going to exhibit externally. So that's why that behavior, which is oftenly called as implicit and hidden, that means it will be understood by someone or it is going to be hidden inside our brain. So that type of behavior the thinking is, and in which symbols are ordinarily employed. Most commonly the symbols, or we can say the images, will be there when this thinking process will be initiated inside our brain. So that is called as your thinking, a behavior which is often implicit and hidden, which we are not able to see. For an example, right now what you all the students are thinking, I don't know. So that type of things are called as your thinking. What is there inside your mind? I am not able to see that. So that is called as hidden or implicit characteristics of this thinking. So that type of behavior of the individuals are called as your thinking. Mainly it will be presented into symbols. So generally we are going to use symbols, and in our mind that symbols will be there. As we have seen in this previous image, this girl, see what she is imaging. For an example, if she is solving any mathematical questions or any questions from the science, then this type of symbols will be there in her mind. So that is called as your thinking, which is represented by symbols. So that definition of thinking was given by Garrett in 1968. The next definition of thinking, that is by Gleimer in 1970. According to him, thinking is a problem-solving process. As we have discussed earlier in introduction, whenever there will be the problem, that is going to initiate a thinking process. So as a result to solve the problem, our thinking process is going to be initiated. So that's why it is called as that thinking is a problem-solving process in which we use ideas or symbols in places of overt activity. That means instead of actual activity, some ideas are there, some concepts are there in our mind. So that is called as your thinking process, ideas or symbols in places of overt activity. That means to solve any problem, we are not directly going to do any activities. Instead of that, we are going to think about that strategies. We are going to think about that solutions that to solve the particular problem, what strategies or what solutions we are going to use. So that is called as your thinking. So instead of your overt activity, directly you are not going to do the actual activity, but instead of that, the symbols and ideas and concepts will be there in your mind. Then that what you are going to do to solve that particular problem. So as a result of this problem solving process, the thinking process is going to initiated in your mind, and it will be in the form of your ideas, or we can say your symbols, or we can say your there's images, so that all the things will be there, all the things will initiated into human being's mind. So that is called as your thinking. After the definition, here we have the different types of thinking. So if we talk about the types of thinking, the first one we have, that is the perceptual or concrete thinking. The next is our conceptual or abstract thinking. The third one is your reflective or logical thinking. Next is your creative thinking. Next is your critical thinking. Another two types also we have for this thinking, that is your controlled thinking, we can say, or free thinking. So there's another two types of thinking also we have. Let's see all these types one by one. So your first type of thinking, that is your perceptual or concrete. So word itself says that perceptual, that means perception, the process of perception will be there, and as a result of this perception, this thinking process is going to be initiated. So that is called as perceptual, or we can say concrete. That means some actual things are there in the environment, something is there, something real objects are there in the environment. So that is the concrete thing we have in our environment. So that is called as perceptual or concrete thinking. So the interpretation of sensation according to one's experience. So as we have learned the perception, that another cognitive function what we have learned. So that is your perception, when the sensation will be there, and as a result of that sensation, to give the meaning to that sensation, when our brain is going to interpret that information, and that is your perception. So that meaning what you are giving to your sensation, that means actual object is there, actual situation or actual scenario is there in the external environment, and that you are observing, and that is creating some thinking in your mind. So that is called as your perception or perceptual thinking, or we can say the concrete thinking, because actual object is there. As we have probably seen in our previous lectures, the example of rose. For an example, rose will be there, and all the thoughts will come into your mind based on your previous learning, that yes, this is the rose flower, the color is red, the smell is rosy smell. So that is called as thinking, when all that idea will start coming in your mind. So after seeing or after observing the external stimuli, as a result of your perception, this thinking process will initiated. So that is your perceptual or concrete thinking, we can say, because the actual thing or actual object is there in the external environment. So that is your perceptual or concrete thinking. So this type of thinking is a lower order thinking. That means the simpler thinking process. We don't need any logical thinking or reasoning, that all the things are not required. It is very lower order thinking process, very simple in a form. So that's why it will be present in animals and children's. Children's or animals might be going to see any objects, and all the thoughts will start into their mind. So that is your perceptual or concrete thinking, which is lower order of thinking, not higher thinking process are required. So that is your perceptual or concrete thinking. The next type of your thinking is conceptual or abstract thinking, exactly opposite of that perceptual. Perceptual, that means something, some objects were there, what we were perceiving, but here it is a conceptual thinking. That means ideas we have in our mind, ideas are going to be initiated, not in the absence of actual stimuli. Though there is nothing in the external environment, thus we will be starting thinking. So that is called as your conceptual, or we can say abstract thinking. Inside our mind, the thoughts will be there, the ideas will be there. So that is totally based on the ideas. So that's why it is called as abstract. Where in concrete, we were having the actual object, but here in abstract, we don't have the actual object, only the abstract. That means imaginations we can say, or ideas we can say. So ideas are there inside our mind. So that type of thinking are called as your conceptual or abstract thinking. So it does not require the perception of actual objects or events. Though there is no any objects in the external environment, our mind is going to start the thinking process. So that is called as your conceptual or abstract thinking. It does not require any perception of actual objects. We don't need any object to think about that particular object. So that type of thinking will be called as your conceptual or abstract thinking. It is an abstract thinking where one makes use of concepts, the generalized ideas and languages. That means there is no any actual object or any stimuli or any situations are there, but the people are going to start or people are going to initiate their thinking process based on their previous or past experiences, what they think about that particular situation or particular thing. So about that, so that is called as the conceptual or abstract thinking, we can say. It is based on the concepts or generalized ideas, generalized principles we have, general things we have. So that is your generalized ideas and languages, what already we know, what already we have learned. So that all the things are going to strike into our mind, and that is called as your conceptual or abstract thinking. This type of thinking process are superior to perceptual thinking. Compared to perceptual thinking, or we can say the concrete thinking, it is superior to that, because the objects are not there. That means some problems are initiated. There is a problems, and to solve that problems we are going to our thinking process is going to be triggered to solve or to seek the answer to that particular problem. So the problems are there, and to seek answer of that particular problem, we are the thinking process is going to be initiated. So that's why it is called as a superior to perceptual things. So this type of thinking is called as your conceptual or abstract thinking. You can see in this image, the ideas are there. To solve any issues, there will be the ideas, or we can say the concepts will be there, or generalized principles will be there. Generalized ideas, that means which is applicable in one situation, that can be applicable in similar all other situations. So that is called as generalized ideas. After that, next type of thinking is your reflective or logical thinking. Reflective or logical thinking, that means it is mainly based on rules and regulations. Something formal thinking is there. All the rules and regulations and logics we are going to use. So that is called as your reflective or logical thinking. So this requires reorganization of all the relevant experiences, because we need to answer a current problem, and in order to have the answer or a solution of a problem right now what we are having in our hand, so to solve that particular problem, there is a need to reorganize all the past experiences, that priorly the same things or similar problems was there, and what we have done to solve that problem, what was effective and what all the things were not effective. Based on that, we are reorganizing, we are arranging all the things again, and after that we are trying to solve our current situation or current problem. So that type of thinkings are called as logical thinking, or we can say reflective thinking, because our past experiences are giving some reflection in the present situations. So that is called as your reflective or logical thinking. And based on that past things, finding new ways of reacting to a situation. So we are in a search of ways so that we can solve problems, or we can create a new situation. So that is called as your reflective or logical thinking. So this is totally insightful cognitive approach. Insightful cognitive approach, that means first we are understanding that particular situation, we are getting what exactly that problem is, we are trying to understand that what is that problem, what that problem is giving meaning to us. So that is insightful cognitive approach, and it takes a logic into account. Logic, that means all the rules and regulations we are using, that how it will be beneficial or what will be the disadvantages of all that strategies what we are going to use. So all that logically thinking process, that means logics we are going to use. So that is called as your reflective or logical thinking. What problem we have, to identify or to solve that problem or to react in that situation all the past experiences, so that solutions or that strategies we are correlating, or that all the things are reflecting in the current situation what we have in our hand right now. So we can solve the current situation. So that is called as your reflective or logical thinking, very formal one. After that, the another thinking process is your creative thinking. Creative, that means something new we are creating. Name itself says creating. That means establishing something new things, creating something new. So that is your creative. So as this creative, that means we are creating something new. So that is also related to your thinking, something new we are creating. So let's see. It is in search of new relationships and associations to describe and interpret the nature of things, events and situations. That means creative thinking, for an example, the thinker is going to establish, or thinker is going to answer the problem based on their life situation, something new, something to identify the answers of something new problems. The problems also will be formulated by them only, and that formulated problems will be answered by them only, and for that the new strategies they are going to implement to solve that particular problems or areas in what they have formulated the questions or a problems. So that is called as your creative thinking. Something new, that means new relationships and associations to describe and to interpret the nature of things. That means a particular problem what they are formulating, the new problem what they need to answer. So that new problem will be formulated by the thinker itself, and they are going to give answer to that particular problem. So the nature of things, events and situations, they are going to describe that what actually that situation is, or what actually that thing is. So this is how they are going to create something new. So that is called as your creative thinking. Then another type of thinking is your critical thinking. Critical thinking, that means some higher amount of thinking process is required. So let's see, the higher order will discipline thought process. Higher order, that means the critical thinking we need to solve all the problems or any situations or any circumstances, and for that the critically we have to think. The higher thinking process will be required, the more disciplines will be required. So that type of thinking, it involves the use of cognitive skills like conceptualizations. That means the idea should be clear, what exactly that problem is. The concepts we are going to getting clear, that what that situation is, we are going to understand about that situation. Concept we are going to create in our mind about that particular situation or problem. So that is your conceptualization. Then the interpretation, that means that particular concept, the interpretation we are going to do it. We are going to understand that what actually that concept is. So that is your interpretation. After that we are going to do analysis of that particular problem. That means the division of that problems to get the answers of that particular questions in that problem. So analysis we are going to do. The next is synthesis. That means grouping of all the informations to get the answer about that particular problem. So that synthesis we are going to do, and evaluations we are going to do, so that arriving at an unbiased and valid and reliable judgment. So that is called as your critical thinking. After doing or after going through all these steps, we need a good decision for that particular problem. We need a unbiased decision for that problem or for that whatever situation it is there. So that unbiased things, valid and reliable judgment we need, and for that judgment we are in need of this critical thinking. So that's why it is called as higher order, because this critical thinking will be done by this judges and all in the legislative things. So that judges are going to do this type of critical thinkings, where they need to analyze the whole situations, the concepts, the interpretations will be there, analysis will be there, synthesis will be there, and after that they are coming to the answers or coming to the solution of that particular problem. So that is called as your critical thinking. Apart from that, another types of thinking we have, that is your control thinking and your free thinking. So this is the another type. The first one is your control thinking. Control, the word itself says us control. That means the process of thinking for the thinker is going to be controlled. The control will be there over that whole thinking process. So in specific limitations the thinkers are going to think. So that is called as your control thinking. Thought keep in close touch with reality and are directed towards the achievement of specific goal. That means whenever the person is having a specific problem or whenever they are having some specific goals in their life, to achieve that specific goals, they are going to do this control thinking, because we have specific goal in our mind. So to achieve that goal, on that path only we are going to walk. So that's why we can say that it is a control thinking. Otherwise, we won't be able to achieve our goals. So this control thinking is helpful when the persons or when the individuals are in need to achieve a specific goals in their life. The example of this control thinking is your reasoning, problem solving and creative thinking. Let's see all these three things one by one. So the first one is your reasoning. Reasoning, that means giving reasons for something. To solve any problems, we are giving some reasons, we are bargaining. So that is your reasoning. So definition of this reasoning, which is also given by this Garrett in 1968. Reasoning is stepwise thinking with a purpose or goal in mind. So already a goal we have in our mind, and to achieve that goal, we are going to think in that particular area. So that is called as your reasonings. We are giving some proof or we are giving some reasons, some strengthening things we are giving so that we can achieve our goals, we can fulfill some requirements. So that is called as your reasoning. Stepwise thinking with a purpose or goal in our mind. We have that specific goals, and to achieve that specific goals or for that particular purpose only we are going to think. So that is called as your reasoning. So when we talk about this reasoning, it has another two types, that is your inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. So let's see what is this inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. So the first one is your inductive reasoning. Inductive, that means induction is a way of providing a statement or generalizing a rule or a principle. That means any statement we are giving to generalize some specific principles or rules. That means at one hand we have the statement, at another hand we have the generalizing rule or a principles. So from the specific we are coming to the generalizing. For an example, generalizing a rule or a principle, that means for an example from specific things we are coming to generalize the things. For an example, one principle is there which is which is fitting into one situations that is going to suitable in all the other situations, which is same or similar into characteristics. So that means from a specific statement we are coming to generalize, generalizing a rule or a generalizing a principles. For an example, we can say that once the statement has been given that iron will be heated, the heating of the iron will lead to the expansion of iron. The another thing we have, that is your air. When the air will be heated, that is also leads to the expansion of the air. The another thing we have, that is water. When this water will be heated, the expansion of water will be there. That means in all these three situations or in all these three specific statement, the same thing what we are getting, the same result what we are getting is the expansion. And this all the three things, that means all these three specific things or a statement are the matter. So we can say, so we can generalize this like this, that all the matters will be expanded when it will be heated. All the matters, that means iron is also matter, air is also matter, and water is also matter. Matter in the sense of liquid, gas and solid. So all these three matters are going to be expanded while we are going to heat that particular metal. So that means from this specific thing, that rules we have implemented, or we have generalized that rules in similar characteristics or similar situations. So that is called as your inductive reasoning. The specific statement we are generalizing, or we are the generalized principles we are implementing in the same situations or similar situations. So that is called as inductive reasoning. Exact opposite of this inductive reasoning, we have the deductive reasonings. Here from the specific it was working towards the generalized things. Instead of that, in deductive reasoning, the things are going to work from general to the specific. That means all the matters are expanded when it is being heated, because we know that iron is going to be heated and that is going to be expanded, air and water also. So all these three are the solid matters. All these three things, solid, liquid and gases, are the matters. So that means all the matters will be expands when it is going to be heated. So this is how in deductive reasoning we are going from generalized principles to specific things, and that's why this iron is heated and expanded, the air is heated and expanded, and the water are heated and expanded, so on. So that is your deductive reasoning. The very simple and the common thing is, in inductive reasoning we are going from specific things or a specific statement or a fact towards the generalized principles, where in deductive reasoning from the generalized things we are going towards the specific statement or specific fact. So that is called as your reasoning. So two types of reasoning we have, inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. After that, another method we have in controlled thinking, that is your problem solving thinking. The name itself says we are trying to solve any problems. That means it is a higher thinking process, the complex thinking process, where we are going to solve specific problems. So that is your problem solving thinking in your controlled thinking. So what is problem solving thinking? It is a process of overcoming difficulties. Obviously there is a problem, that means some difficulties we have, and to overcome that difficulties we are seeking some solutions. So that is your overcoming difficulties that appear to interfere with the attainment of goal. That means some difficulties are there which is not allowing us to attain some goals, which is a interference for us, which is an obstacle for us to get or to achieve our goal. So that is all the difficulties we need to solve here. It is a procedure of making adjustment in spite of interference. Though we have this all the types of interference, our goal is to achieve that goals, and we are going towards that achieving goals by adjusting with all these difficulties. That means while all the difficulties are there in surrounding area, though we are adjusting in the difficulties, and our goal is only to achieve our specific goal or purposes. So that is called as your problem solving thinking. So this definition of this problem solving thinking has been given by the Skinner in 1968. And for this problem solving thinking, it involves this steps of problems. So here we have the steps of problem solving thinking, or a problem solving we can say. Whenever we need to achieve some goals or we need to solve some problems, at that time, according to this reasoning, according to this control thinking, we are going to pass from all these cycles. So that is the first step, very first step in this problem solving technique is your problem awareness. Once we are aware about the problems, that what actually problem is, then and then only we will be able to identify some solutions for that particular problem. So in first step, we are going to be aware about the problem, what actually the nature of that particular problem is, what that problem is saying us. First we need to be aware about that problem. So that is your problem awareness. We have to define that problem, that what exactly that problem is. So that is your problem awareness. From the different sources, we need to identify that what exactly this problem is. So that it is. Then the second step is your problem understanding. Now we know that what actually the problem is. We are aware about the problem. Yes, this problem has been arised. So that is your awareness of that particular problem. Now we need to understand that problem. That means we have to give meaning to that problem. The interpretation we have to do of that problem. So that's why it will be helpful for us that what we can do to solve that particular problem. So that is your problem understanding. And to understand that problem, also we have to further divide that problem into short-term and long-term goal. That to solve that particular problem, what goals we have to establish so that we can solve that particular problem. So that is the total understanding. We have to clearly state that problem, that yes, exactly what that problem is. So that is the problem understanding. After that, third step we have in problem solving process, that is collection of relevant information. That means all the informations in that particular area we are going to collect from different sources. For an example, if that current problem what we are trying to solve, that might be similar to our past experiences, what we have passed in our previous life. So that association we can do, we can relate that problems with that. So what we have done in our past life to solve that problem at that time. So that same thing, what was beneficial, that we can implement in the current situation as well. So we have to collect the data from our past experiences. We need to review the past experiences as well. Apart from that, we have to go for some literature review or study of some literatures we have to do, so that we can understand that particular problem. We can collect or we can gather the information about that particular problem. So that we have to do. Apart from that, we have to collect the data from the superior persons, those who are superior or seniors or experienced persons in that particular area from us. So their opinion also we can take. So from all these areas we are going to collect the information so that we can choose the best alternatives or strategies to overcome that particular problem. So that will be done in the collection of relevant information. After that, the fourth or next step is formulation of hypothesis. Formulation of hypothesis, or we can say the hunch of possible strategies, what we are going to implement to solve our problem. So formulation of hypothesis, that means the probable things or a probable solutions what we are going to use to solve our problem. So that we are going to list it out, that what all the solutions or strategies will be, that what kind of things can solve this particular problem. So that thing we are going to do here, the formulation of hypothesis or a bunch of solutions, possible solutions, whether these solutions might be work, whether these solutions might be work. So that type of all the solutions we are going to make a list of all that solutions. So that is the formulation of hypothesis. After this step, the fifth one will be selection of a proper solution. What all the formulated hypothesis we have, from that the particular solution we are going to selecting. So that is called as your selection of a proper solution. Proper solution in the sense of, first thing we need to identify what solution we are selecting that has a minimal disadvantages and maximum advantages. The limitations and delimitations of that all the solutions we need to check it out, and then only we can implement it in current situation to solve any problem. So proper solutions we have to select what has been hypothetically tested and validated. So that type of solutions we need to select. And after that, the last one what we have to do is verification of the concluded solutions. Here we have already selected the solutions, and in this sixth step we have to verify the concluded solution. That means whether that solution has been sorted out or not, whether that problem has been sorted out or not. So that verification of the concluded solution we have to do, that what solutions we have used that has solved our problems or not. So for this verification we need to use other steps, that is your ideal. That means D, E, A and L. So that is ideal. So these steps we are going to use it out for verification of the concluded solution. Ideal, the first step. Then second is your D, E, A and L. So the first I, that means identifying the solution, what exactly that solution is. Then D is your identifying the problem. Then D is your defining the problem. So first we are going to identify the problem, what actually the problem is. Then we are going to defining that problem, what we need to do to solve that problem. So defining the problem or solutions. Then evaluating the problem or evaluating the solutions, what solutions we have implemented and the evaluation of that particular solutions we have to made. So that is evaluation, that whether it is suitable to solve that particular situation or a particular problem or not. So that evaluation of problem we have to do. Then analysis we have to do. At the same time action, we have to implement this solutions what we have listed out. And at last in L, we have to look at the previous state of that problem. We have to look back that whatever we have done in these steps, that was sufficient to solve that particular problem or not. So we have to look back on the previous situation and we have to compare both the situation, that whether the problem has been solved out or not. So that is identification of the problem, defining the problem and defining the goal, evaluating the problem and implementing the actions, that is your actions. Then L is your looking back to that previous solution. So that is called as your ideal in verification of the concluded solution. After that, the another thing we have is your creative thinking, another type in your control thinking. So that is your creative thinking. So again, similar to that same thing, creative thinking, that means something new we are going to create. So this is defined as personal imaginative thinking, which produces a new, novel and useful solution. That means the thinkers are going to find out some new ways or new things to solve that particular problem. Something new or useful solutions. Novel, that means new in a nature, and new produces a new, novel and useful solutions for that particular problem what has been raised by them itself. So that is your creative thinking. So these all the three types of thinking are under the control thinking, when the thinkers will be in some limitations or in some boundaries, and their thinking pattern will be controlled to identify or to give answers to that specific problem. So that is your control thinking. After this control thinking, the another type of thinking we have, that is okay. So in this creative thinking also we have the stages of creative thinking. So let's see the stages of creative thinking. So the first one is preparation. Preparation in the sense of the problem will be formulated by the thinker. So that is the preparation stage, where the thinkers are going to formulate one situation, or they are going to formulate one problem, what they need to give answer to, what situation they need to give answer. So that is the preparation of that problem, or a preparation of the particular problem to answer to that situation. So that is preparation stage. Also, if they don't want, if they are not able to give answers, or if they are not able to do anything in that particular problematic area within a week or days or a month, then they are going to turning back. So that turning back stage is going to lead to the next step, that is your incubation. So this is your incubation, when actually when these thinkers are going to be turn back. That means involuntary or deliberately they are going, or they are turning back because they were not able to answer that particular questions. So that stage is called as incubation stage. Now they have already turned away, but still that informations, still what difficulties were there in solving that particular problems are still in their unconscious mind. So that incubation stage, furtherly it is going to be converted into this insight. That means what all the solutions or strategies or steps to solve that particular problem was there in their mind, that is going to be fade away, because after the long term of use of that particular strategies, they are not using that particular things, what solutions they are having, and that was not useful. So that is going to be fade away, and because of that fade away, still suddenly the solutions will be strike into their mind. So that is called as creativity. That means all the things which was interfering or which was difficulty to answer that particular questions, now that has fade away, but suddenly the new ways they have find it out to solve that particular situation or a problem. So that is called as insight. After that, the verification of that new solutions will be there, whether that new solutions or strategies was useful to solve that particular problem or not. So that verification or validation will be there, and after that, if that was effective, that all the strategies going to be revised to solve the new problem. So that is called as your creativity. The preparation, the incubation, insight, verification and revision. So this was about your stages of creative thinking in your control thinking. After that, another type of thinking we have, that is our free thinking. Free thinking. In control thinking, the thinkers were having the limitations, the boundaries were there. To achieve some specific goals only the thinking process was triggered. But here in free thinking, they do not have any specific problems or they do not have any specific issues to solve it out. But instead of that, they are allowed fully to think in beyond their limitations. So that is called as your free thinking. So here in free thinking, thoughts process are allowed much greater freedom of action. That means whatever action will be taken, for that actions they will be given some freedom to take that particular actions. So here in free thinking we have another 3 examples, or we can say the types of free thinking, that is your imagination, daydreaming and dreaming. So these all the 3 things what we all the peoples are doing in our day-to-day life. So that is the same techniques, imagination, daydreaming and dreaming. Let's see this one by one. The first one is your imagination. Imagination, that means images will be there in the thought process. So that is your imagination. It is a mental activity in which we make use of images and also go beyond them. Though we don't have any objects or any stimuli in our environment, in the external environment, though the perception is not present, the concrete thing is not present, it is totally going to work on our abstract thing. And how we need to modify that specific objects, likewise we are modifying that objects or that situations or that substance. So that is called as imaginations. According to our wish, we are modifying that images. So that is called as your imagination, or we can say the free thinking, that is your imagination. The use of the images will be done and the individuals will go beyond that images. That means the exact things are not there, but they are modifying that things to get a pleasure from that images. So that is your imagination. The another thing is, second type of free thinking is your daydreaming. Daydreaming, that means dreaming during the day. So that is your daydreaming. It provides a person with an opportunity to develop his power of imagination. That means that specific individuals, those who are doing this daydreaming, they are developing their power of imaginations. That means the imaginations are under their control. For an example, any children or any individual is there who is not able to play this tennis or any cricket or any play activity correctly, or they are not able to achieve a gold medal in that, but in their imagination they are getting that, yes, I actually got this trophy in this tennis or any other games like cricket. So that imaginations are going to give them a pleasure. So that is called as your daydreaming. Though the thing or a situation is not a real or is not a real in that particular life situation, but then also that situation is giving them a satisfaction or pleasure. So that's why that thought process has been triggered like that. So the individuals are going to develop power of imagination, and with much satisfaction and pleasure provides an escape from the routine life. So that is going to relieve the frustration of not getting the trophy in real life that might be there. So that individuals will be for some time of period while they are in this daydreaming, for that time of period they will be escaped from the reality situation or the real situation. In what situation they didn't got that trophy, but the other friends might be got that trophy. So that real situation or real experience will be escaped, and they are going to get satisfaction or pleasure from the daydreaming process. But sometimes when this daydreaming is in an excessive manner, the excessive things that can lead to some lacking points, or the individuals won't be able to achieve their goals. So that is called as your daydreaming. The next is third technique, that is your dreaming in your free control or free thinking. So that is your dreaming. Dreams are a mental activities of lighter sleep. When the individuals will be in a light sleep, not in a heavy sleep, the middle one, light sleep, at that time dreams will be there. And this dreams is not subject to the personal and environmental control that operate when we are awake. So actually what we are dreaming, that is not in our control, that is not in the control of the individuals or not in the control of the environment, in which environment they are living. So that is your dreaming, we can say. When the individuals will be in the lighter sleep, the dreams will be there, and this all the dreams are a result of our day-to-day life or day-to-day activities. For an example, the one individual who want to achieve a good scores or who is whole day thinking about achieving or hard working for their examinations, they might have the dreams in their lighter sleep regarding this all the examinations and all. So that associations might be there. Whatever problems we have in our whatever hassles or problems we have in our day-to-day life, that type of dreams might be there. So that associations might be there in this lighter sleep. So that is your dreaming. So these are your three techniques, that is your imagination, the second one is your daydreaming, and the third one is your dreaming. So that is your free thinking, we can say, because no one can control us to think all that type of things, even that is not in our conscious control. So that's why it is called as a free thinking. So these all were the types of thinking, the perceptual thinking or the abstract thinking or logical thinking, or we can say the control thinking, free thinking. After the types of thinking, the next point we have, that is your levels of thinking. So this levels of thinking was given by Bloom's. It is based on the Bloom's taxonomy. Benjamin Bloom's, who has given this level of thinking, that in what level the individuals or children are going to think. So they have given this Bloom's taxonomy. So that's why the Benjamin Bloom's, American educator psychologist. So that's why from his name it is called as your Bloom's taxonomy. According to him, according to Benjamin Bloom's, they says that this levels, from this levels, the infant and the toddler below the age group of 3 years, they use only this basic two components only, that is your comprehension and knowledge. 2 levels only will be used by the toddler or by the infant below the age group of 3 years. After the age of 3 years, the children are going to use all these rest of the levels. So that is greater than 3 years of age. And this is below the 3 years of age. Below the 3 years of age, the infants and toddlers are only going to use this knowledge and comprehension. And after the 3 years, they are going to use this application, analysis, synthesis and evaluation. So that is according to Benjamin Bloom. And he has said, so this is the oldest version or a old thing of this Bloom's taxonomy, the knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis and evaluation. After that, it has been revised, and the revised thing is this: remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate and create. So this is the revised Bloom's taxonomy. So as per the Bloom's taxonomy, the levels of thinking we can say, so the first level of thinking is your knowledge. So knowledge is a very basic level of thinking. So in what knowledge, that means the individuals are going to, the infants are going to collect all the informations that what actually the thing is. So that is the knowledge, the collection of the informations, and the collection of the informations will be there. And so that's why we are going to use that how something is happened, what will be happened, where, how, what. So that type of keywords will be used in this knowledge. After that, the comprehension, that means the total understanding of that particular situation or things or objects. So that will come under this comprehension. The children are going to start to understand that particular phenomena or to understand that particular object. So that is your comprehension. After that comprehension, after understanding this knowledge and comprehension, they are going to apply this knowledge, what they have gained, so that all the knowledge will be applied. So that is the application of the knowledge. And after that, analysis of that knowledge will be done. Analysis, that means that particular problem or objects are going to be divided into sub small groups, and for that particular single groups or a single thing, the solutions will be there. So that is the analysis. After that, they are going to synthesize, that means the grouping of that whole. They will start looking at the object or a thing or a situation as a whole. So that is your synthesis. And after that, the judgment will be there, the evaluation will be there, that how effectively it has worked. So that is your evaluation, what all the informations they have collected, what they have understood, what they have implemented and what they have analyzed, how this whole the process has been done, and what actually the effectiveness what they got. So that is your evaluation. That means it is going to judge that whole situation. So that is your evaluation. So if we understand the other areas or the revised version of this level of thinking, then the first thing is your remember, just like your knowledge, the gathering of the informations will be there, and remembering of that informations. So recall facts and basic concepts. That means the individuals are going to recall the facts, what they have learned, what knowledge they have gained, and the basic concepts will be all that informations will be gained by them. So that is remembering. In that, the keywords will be define, duplicate, list, memorize, repeat or state. So this type of keywords will be used. After that, the another thing is your understand, as we have discussed earlier, understanding all the things. That means explain ideas or concepts, what informations we have gathered and what exactly that informations says us, or what is the meaning of that information. That is your ideas or concepts. So that for that understanding we have the keywords, that is your classify, describe, discuss, explain, identify, locate, recognize, report, select and translate. So these all are the keywords. Then apply, that means application of this, both the things we are going to do. So that is the application or the apply. So use information in new situation. What informations we have gathered, what information we have understood, that we are going to implement in our new situations when that situations will be came into our life. So that is the application of this situation. That means applying. So that's why we are doing executing, implementing, solve, use, demonstrate, interpret, operate, schedule and sketch. After that, analysis we are doing of that all the situations. So in analysis, we are going to identify the interference. So that's why we are going to differentiate that. It is going to be divided into subparts. So all the whole thing we are going to divide into small parts and we are considering it as a part, so that we can identify the difficulties in each and every aspect. So that is draw connections among ideas. And for that, differentiation, organizing, relate, compare, contrast, distinguish, examine, experiment, question, test, this type of keywords will be used. After that, evaluations we are going to do, that means the judgment, what we have seen over there, that means justify a stand or a decision, what decision we have done or what the solutions or strategies we have implemented. So that justification, that means judgment we are going to give, and for that appraise, argue, defend, judge, select, support, value, critic and weigh. This type of keywords will be used, and at the end, as a result, by doing all this thing, something new we are going to create. So that is the production of something new things, creating something new. So that new situation, so that is produce new or original work. And for that, design, assemble, construct, conjecture, develop, formulate, author and investigate. This type of keywords will be used for this create. So these are the levels of thinking based on the Bloom's taxonomy. After that, next we have elements in development of thought. So development of thought. So what all are the components or elements which are involved in developing this thought? So these some elements we have. So here the first one is your images. When the development of thoughts will be there, the images are going to come into our mind. So that is your images, whether the perceptual things might be there or it not might be there. If the thing is there, the concrete thing is there, then also the images will be created into our mind, and in absence of thing, to develop the thought process, the images or symbols will be there in our mind. So that is the one element of our thinking, development of thinking. So that is your images. The second one is your concepts. That means the ideas will come into our mind. When the ideas will be there, then and then only this thinking process will be started or initiated. So the concepts, that means the ideas or abstract thoughts will be there into our mind about some specific situations or a persons or the object. So that is the concepts. Then symbols and signs. So all those things what we are thinking, so that is that will be present in the form of symbols and signs. So that is the symbols and signs are playing a role in developing the thought process. After that, the languages, that means whatever we are thinking, so that is going to be verbalized or in some way with the use of languages, that is going to be exhibited. So that is your languages. And your brain functions. Brain functions in the sense of the interpretation of informations will be there inside our brain, and this is how our brain is going to work to interpret that interpretation of that particular information, and perception will be there, and based on that perception the thinking process is going to be started, so that all the informations will be stored into in our brain as well, and at the time of and in needy time or whenever it is necessary, that will be recalled from that area, and we are going to initiate our thinking process. So that's why these all are the elements, somehow it is involved in our thinking process. So that is your images, concepts, symbols and signs, languages and brain function. So when we think, when the thought process will be started in our mind, at that time all these things are same at the same time, or all these things will be gathered to initiate this thought process in our mind. So that is the elements for development of thoughts.